My name is Rachel Bennett. I'm 27 years old, and 8 months ago I pulled into my parents' driveway to find my 8-year-old daughter, Lily, standing outside in a thunderstorm, soaked to the bone and crying for someone to let her back in. My parents were watching from the porch.
Dry. Calm.
They told me it would toughen her up. They told me I was raising a soft, spoiled kid and that a little discomfort never hurt anyone. What they didn't count on was that 6 years in the army had rebuilt their daughter from the ground up into someone who doesn't panic, doesn't back down, and doesn't forgive people who hurt her child. In the next 10 minutes, I made a decision that ended my relationship with my parents for good. If you've ever had to choose between the family that raised you and the family you built, stay until the end. People assume that because I spent 6 years in the army, I must run my house like a boot camp. The truth is the opposite. After everything I saw overseas, after everything I learned about fear and control, I promised myself that my daughter would never feel unsafe in her own home. Lily is 8. She's gentle in a way I never got to be as a kid. She talks to spiders before she lets them outside. She cries at sad commercials. She asks me to check under her bed not because she's scared, but because she likes knowing I'll always say yes. My parents raised me differently. Cold showers built character. Skinned knees were lessons. Crying got you sent to your room until you stopped. I turned out fine, according to them. Obedient, disciplined, and terrified of disappointing anyone. It took years of therapy and a deployment overseas to unlearn some of that. So when I started raising Lily with patience instead of punishment, my parents didn't hide their opinions. My mother would watch Lily ask to be walked to the mailbox and sigh, "In my day, kids weren't afraid of their own shadow." My father liked to say I was raising a marshmallow like it was a joke, except his eyes never smiled when he said it. I let it go. They were from a different generation, I told myself. Old-fashioned, not dangerous. Lily loved her grandparents, and I wanted her to have them in her life, even if I didn't agree with everything they believed. Looking back now, I think about one conversation in particular. It was a Sunday dinner, maybe 2 months before everything happened. My mother watched Lily flinch at a clap of thunder outside and said, quiet enough that she thought I didn't hear her, "That girl needs something to toughen her up before the real world does it for her." I brushed it off. I wish I hadn't. 3 weeks later, I got the call I'd been waiting months for, a training assignment 2 states away for days, the kind of opportunity that could actually move my career forward. I was excited and terrified in equal measure, because it meant leaving Lily for the first time since she was a baby. My parents offered immediately. "Of course she'll stay with us," my mother said, like it was the easiest decision in the world. And honestly, despite everything, part of me was relieved. They were still her grandparents. They loved her, in their own rigid way. I told myself 4 days wouldn't be enough time for old arguments about parenting styles to matter. I packed Lily's bag myself, her stuffed rabbit, her nightlight, the soft blanket she couldn't sleep without. I wrote out her schedule on an index card. Bedtime, the one show she was allowed before bed, what to do if she had a nightmare. My mother took the card, glanced at it, and set it on the counter without really reading it. I noticed. I told myself it didn't matter. The morning I dropped her off, the weather app on my phone buzzed with a severe thunderstorm watch for that evening.
I almost said something.
I almost changed my mind entirely. But Lily was already unpacking her bag in the guest room, already asking Grandpa if they could bake cookies, and I didn't want to be the mother who couldn't leave her kid for 4 days because of a little rain. I hugged her twice at the door. She held on a beat longer than usual, and I remember thinking it was just because she'd miss me. Not because some part of her already sensed what her grandparents had decided, in private, days before I ever arrived. What I didn't know, what I wouldn't find out until much later, was a conversation that happened in their kitchen the night before I dropped her off. My mother, telling my father this, was their chance. 4 days, no interruptions, no soft-hearted mother hovering over every decision. A chance to do what they believed I never had the strength to do myself. I drove away that morning replaying my own doubts, telling myself I was overthinking it. Lily waved from the window until I turned the corner. It was the last completely carefree wave I'd see from her for a long time. I had no idea a storm was already forming, and I don't mean the one on the weather radar. The training wrapped a full day early, and I didn't think twice about it. I just wanted to get home to my daughter. I turned my phone back on somewhere on the highway and saw 3 missed calls from a neighbor I barely spoke to, followed by a text. "Is everything okay at your parents' house? Just want to check in." That single message sat wrong in my stomach the entire drive. I called my mother. She picked up too fast, her voice too bright, telling me everything was fine, Lily was fine, I shouldn't worry, I should just focus on getting home safe. Something in the rhythm of her words felt rehearsed. I've spent years learning to read people who are hiding something. I know what it sounds like. I didn't call again. I just drove. The storm had rolled in hard by the time I reached their street. Sheets of rain, wind bending the trees sideways, thunder rattling my windows even with them shut. I pulled into the driveway, and my headlights swept across the porch. And there she was, Lily, sitting on the top step, soaked completely through, her arms wrapped around her knees, her whole body shaking. Not from cold, from fear. Her hair was plastered to her face, and she was staring at the front door like she'd been staring at it for a long time, waiting for someone to open it. I don't remember getting out of the car. I remember the rain hitting me and not caring. I remember dropping to my knees on the wet porch and pulling her into my arms, and she didn't even cry out my name. She just gripped the front of my jacket like she was afraid I was going to disappear too. "They said I had to stay outside until I stopped being scared," she whispered against my shoulder. "They said crying doesn't fix anything." Behind me, through the rain-blurred window, I could see my parents standing in the living room.
Dry.
Unmoved. Watching. In that moment, something inside me went completely still. Not panic, not rage, just a cold, focused clarity I hadn't felt since my last deployment. My training didn't just live in my muscles. It lived in the part of me that knew exactly how to compartmentalize terror and turn it into action. I picked my daughter up off that porch, and I didn't say a single word to my parents.
Not yet.
The second we were inside my car, my training took over completely. I didn't think about my parents. I didn't think about what I was going to say to them. My entire focus narrowed down to one thing: assess, stabilize, protect. I cranked the heat as high as it would go and stripped Lily out of her soaked clothes right there in the passenger seat, wrapping her in the emergency blanket I still kept in my trunk out of habit from deployment. I checked her hands and feet for numbness. I checked her lips for any blue tint. I asked her simple questions: her name, her age, what day it was, not because I doubted her, but because it's the fastest way to check if someone is going into shock. Her answers came slow at first, then steadier as the heat filled the car. I've done this before. Not with an 8-year-old in a driveway, but with soldiers in far worse conditions. Somewhere in the field hospital training I went through years ago, they teach you that panic is a choice you don't have time to make. Your hands move before your emotions do. That night, my hands moved on their own, checking her pulse, watching her breathing even out, listening to the rhythm of her heartbeat slow from a frantic flutter to something closer to normal. Only once I was sure she was physically safe did I let myself feel anything at all. And what I felt wasn't panic. It was ice. Through the windshield, I could see my parents finally step out onto the porch, my mother's arms crossed, my father shifting his weight like he already knew this conversation wasn't going to go the way he expected. For a second, I just sat there, one hand still resting on Lily's back, feeling her breathing steady beneath my palm. I thought about every mission briefing I'd ever sat through, every lesson about staying calm when everything around you is falling apart. None of it had prepared me for the sight of my own daughter shivering on a porch because the people who were supposed to protect her decided fear was something to be punished out of her. I kissed the top of Lily's head, told her she did nothing wrong, and made sure she was fully calm and secure. Then, and only then, did I step back out into the rain to face my parents. I walked back up onto that porch soaked to the bone, and for the first time in my life, I looked at my parents without a shred of the old instinct to shrink myself down for them. "She could have gotten hypothermia," I said, my voice flat and controlled in a way that seemed to unsettle my mother more than if I'd screamed.
She's 8.
She was outside, alone, in a lightning storm, because you decided that was a lesson she needed. My father crossed his arms, falling back on the same tone he'd used my entire childhood. We turned out fine, Rachel.
You turned out fine.
A little rain never hurt anybody. You're overreacting. I turned out fine, I repeated, because I learned to survive you. That's not the same as being fine. My mother's chin lifted, defensive. We were building her character. The world isn't going to coddle her the way you do. Somebody needs to teach her that.
She's 8 years old, I said.
Her character isn't built by fear. It's built by knowing someone will protect her when she's scared. That's the lesson. That's the only lesson that matters at her age. My father tried a different angle, softer, the one he used when he wanted to regain control of a conversation. You're upset. That's understandable. But you're being dramatic. Nothing happened to her. Something did happen to her, I said. And I documented it. Photos, the timestamp on the weather alert, her physical state when I found her. I know how to build a case file, Dad. I did it for a living. That landed harder than anything else I'd said. My mother's arms dropped slightly. My father's jaw tightened. Are you threatening us? He asked.
No, I said.
I'm telling you exactly where we stand. You will not be alone with my daughter again. Not unsupervised, not for a sleepover, not for an afternoon. This isn't a punishment. This is a boundary, and it's not up for negotiation. My mother's voice cracked, somewhere between anger and disbelief. You'd really do that? Cut us out over one mistake. I looked back through the rain-streaked window at Lily, wrapped in a blanket in the passenger seat, watching us with wide, uncertain eyes. It wasn't a mistake, I said quietly. A mistake is an accident. This was a decision, and I have to live with the fact that I wasn't here to stop it. I turned and walked back to my car, leaving them standing on that porch in the rain, with nothing left to say that I was willing to hear. Word travels fast in families, even the ones that pretend to keep secrets. Within 2 days, my aunt was calling to tell me I was tearing the family apart over nothing. My uncle sent a text saying grandparents have rights too, as if this were a custody battle instead of a decision to protect my daughter. Even my cousin, who I hadn't spoken to in over a year, messaged me suggesting I was being too harsh on two people who only wanted to help. None of them had seen Lily shaking on that porch. None of them had felt her heartbeat racing under my palm in the car. It was easy for them to have opinions from a distance. My mother tried a different approach next, the guilt trip. A long voicemail about how much they loved Lily, how they'd never forgive themselves if something had actually happened, how they just wanted a chance to make it right. My father sent a card, addressed to Lily, with $50 tucked inside and a note that said, "Missing my favorite girl." I didn't give it to her. Not yet. Maybe not ever. There were nights I lay awake replaying every version of the conversation, wondering if I was being too rigid, too cold, too much like the soldier, and not enough like the daughter they raised. That's the trap of growing up with parents like mine. Even when you know you're right, some small buried part of you still waits for their approval. But then I'd walk past Lily's room and see her sleeping peacefully, nightlight glowing, blanket pulled up to her chin, and I'd remember exactly why I made the choice I made. I stopped answering the extended family group chat. I stopped explaining myself to relatives who hadn't been there. I realized something my training had taught me a long time ago. You don't owe an explanation to people standing outside the situation, judging decisions they weren't equipped to make in the first place. My parents tried one last time, showing up unannounced at my apartment on a Sunday afternoon. I didn't let them pass the doorway. My mother cried. My father argued. I stood my ground, calm and unmoved, the same way I'd learned to stand under far worse pressure than this. You'll see her again, I told them, when I know, without question, that she's safe with you. Not before. They left without another word. And for the first time since that storm, I didn't feel guilty watching them go. I felt like a mother who had finally, fully, chosen her daughter, completely, without apology, without looking back. It's been 8 months since that storm, and life looks different now, quieter, steadier, but in the best possible way. My parents still aren't part of our daily life. We've spoken a handful of times, always brief, always careful. I've told them that trust isn't something you get back by sending gifts or leaving voicemails. It's something you rebuild slowly through actions over time if it can be rebuilt at all. Right now, I honestly don't know if it will be. What I do know is that Lily is different too. Not scarred, not broken, just more herself than ever. A few weeks after everything happened, she asked me why Grandma and Grandpa made her stay outside. I didn't sugarcoat it, but I didn't overwhelm her with it either. I told her the truth in a way an 8-year-old could hold on to. Some grown-ups think being tough means not being scared. But real strength is being scared and still knowing someone will always show up for you. I will always show up for you. She hasn't asked much about them since. Sometimes she draws pictures of our little apartment, just the two of us, and I hang every single one on the fridge like it's a masterpiece. Because to me, it is. I started doing something I never did before all this. I sit with her fear instead of rushing to fix it. When thunder rolls and now, we don't hide from it. We sit by the window together, wrapped in blankets, and I tell her storms can't get us in here. She believes me, because I've never once given her a reason not to. Some nights, when the apartment is quiet and she's asleep down the hall, I think about the woman I was before the army, soft-spoken, eager to please, terrified of disappointing my parents. And then I think about the woman standing on that porch in the rain, who didn't raise her voice once and still won. I think I finally understand what real toughness looks like. It's not standing outside in a storm. It's standing between your child and anyone who tries to put her there. If you've ever had to protect your child from the very people who are supposed to protect you, I want to hear your story in the comments below. And if this hit home for you, stay tuned, because what happens next between me and my father might surprise you more than anything you just watched.